across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and of course coming up at midnight is the phone in, and I do want to talk to you about the criminal justice system. Are you satisfied with the way it's going? Look, Britain is investing in 30,000 more electronic tags for criminals as part of a massive overhaul in sentencing law. Now, what this sentencing law will do is basically say that anybody who gets a sentence that is under a year will not serve any of that time in a prison. So there are many crimes that you would get for under a sentence for under a year, but you won't go to prison. Automatically, it'll be non-custodial. No questions. Of course, for violent crimes, sexual crimes, they would attract a much longer sentence. So we're not talking about those sort of crimes. But what we are talking about is tens of thousands of criminals not serving any prison time. There are one or two exceptions to that, and I'll go through those a little bit later, but that's the basis of it. And this, of course, is to free up prison spaces. This is to make sure that the worst of the worst do actually get into a prison. However, does the system work? Does it work well enough? Does it take into account the punishment side of a prison sentence? Because we have to decide what our justice system is really all about. We obviously want rehabilitation, but there has to be a punishment element as well. Otherwise, what's the point? There has to be some form of punishment that is involved. Is it enough of a punishment to be kept at home between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. I have to tell you, with my life, that is my dream. So I don't know if I would see it as really a punishment. Does it really affect people that much? Look, I don't know. I've never been on a tag, but if you have, let me know what it was like. Did it feel like you were serving your prison sentence at home? What we were calling it something like prison at home. But you're free to go about your business during the day. That's so that you can keep your job, you can still take the kids to school, you can still, I don't know, go out for lunch, whatever it is that you want to do. And that, again, doesn't feel like much of a punishment. But for a long time now, the justice system has looked at these shorter term sentences and said, who are we really punishing? What we do is we punish them twice because you lose your job and you can't get a job again, and then they're more likely to reoffend. You're punishing the family, you're punishing the children, you're punishing the relationship. So who are we really punishing? So I suppose it's a conversation around that. But more interestingly, I'd like to know if you have been tagged or if you have served a prison sentence for less than a year, and are they worth it? I suspect they're not. There isn't time to rehabilitate in 12 months or 11 months. So what are we looking at here? And are you, just as a layperson like me, satisfied with tag instead of prison? I'd love to hear your points of view on this. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can message me as well, put the word talk and then your message to 87222. That's at midnight. Coming up before then, we have Amy Fischer in the studio to go through the newspapers for tomorrow. Also, Van Connor, our film critic, will be here with some fabulous films that he is reviewing. And Fevzi Turkalp, our gadget guru, our gadget Yeah, gadget guru. I was going to say geek, but yeah, I mean, he is a geek. We'll be here as well talking about all the new gadgets. But first, let's address the issue of those electronic tags. The Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is understood to have secured £700 million in funding from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, to buy the devices. This will increase the probation service's budget by roughly a third and enable it to quadruple the number of criminals fitted with electronic tags. Now, we do know recently Serco, who runs this scheme for the government, has had some problems. The government has said, look, it's not really a technology problem, it was a people problem, and they've sorted that. They've sorted that out. But the probation service is probably one that, along with prisoners, prison guards, is the worst funded of the justice system around. So do we have enough probation officers to do this job properly, or are we going to rely on AI and electronics to do the job for us? Let's talk now to David Shipley, who's a former prisoner and now a prisoner's advocate. Hello there, good to see you again. Thank you for joining me, David. Listen, at the moment we have about 9,000 that can be tagged. This number going up to 40,000, that's a big leap very quickly. Can we do it?
Yeah, it's a huge leap. And the problem the government's got is the prison system is broken and full. So this week we're going to see the sentencing review announcing all sorts of changes, which will mean fewer people going to prison, trying to bring the prison population down. In an ideal world, we'd have a few years to get the probation service ready to have this many people on tags, to get the computer system set up, to get people trained. Instead, the government's going to be trying to do this at breakneck speed to stop the prison system running out of space in 2026. So I think it's really risky.
I mean, to upscale that quickly and that significantly, already Serco are failing to tag people who are supposed to be on tag the second that they're released from prison, having served their 40%. They're not getting to them for a few weeks. I mean, anything can happen in that time, right?
Yeah, and this is the huge problem. You can have all the technology in the world. If your people are not in work, if they're not very well trained, if they're not very diligent, the system won't function. All this monitoring technology, it's not like Mission Impossible. There isn't a control center where they can see where every person with the tag is at any moment and what they're doing. These systems set off alerts if someone breaches the rules of their tag, and that gets reported to Serco, who are then supposed to report to probation. Often that doesn't happen quickly. So actually, that's the issue here. And if you don't have enough good people in probation, enough people working for Serco on these tags, the system will fall apart.
Do these tags deliver what we are told that they deliver? Even that description there, that if they, like for a domestic abuser, for example, would have, I presume, some sort of area that they're not allowed into where they've domestically abused their partner. Do they really alert somebody that quickly, that you could get the police there that quickly? If somebody on tag who has domestically abused a partner wanders next to the house, are the police there within milliseconds, as you would hope?
No, not generally. So these tags log where someone's been, but I said there's not sort of live monitoring of people's locations. So generally speaking, all you'll be getting is a record that the person has breached their license, on which basis they could be recalled to jail. But these aren't a replacement for supervision, and they aren't a replacement for probation officers. I think that's a really important thing. They are a tool for those professionals.
I mean, the reason I mentioned domestic abusers is because when we had that early release scheme where the government said, no, we're not going to let anybody violent out. Of course, we know now that there were domestic abusers who were allowed out. Now, domestic abusers, if they've got a literal axe to grind, they could then go and, let's say, murder their ex-partner, and the police will only know that they were there. They won't know when they are there.
Yes, and I think you would hope that will deter some men. The knowledge that they would be caught hopefully would deter that kind of violence. But yeah, it's not a live system for preventing crime. Similarly, the alcohol tags and the drug tags they want to bring in don't stop someone taking drugs or drinking. They'll just recall that they've done it so they can face consequences for it down the line.
And are you satisfied as a former prisoner that this is robust enough, that this system is robust enough?
It's a good question. I've worn a tag, and it does feel restricting. You know, you have to be home by 7 p.m. every night. You can't leave the house till 7 a.m. in the morning. That meant, I couldn't go out or anything like that. I could work in the daytime, but that was it. So it does feel restricting. And what the government's talking about doing is switching to a model where people, if they behave well in the prison system, get released early onto tag for longer. And I can see the appeal of that. And I think if it was done well, and conditions of release were that you had to be working, it could be quite effective. There's a couple of problems. As I said, first of all, there's not many probation officers, and we need thousands more. And we've got these issues with Serco. But also, a lot of the people who are, particularly those on short sentences, who'll be benefiting from this, often have quite chaotic lives. They have substance abuse issues, they have mental health issues, and they need a lot of supervision. And for them, abiding by a tag might actually be this incredibly difficult thing to do, because they've got to manage all these drug addiction issues. They've got lots of people who have bad influences in their life. They need close support from probation and other professionals, and it's not clear how that's going to be delivered with the staffing levels we've got.
The tag itself, are they easy to remove? Can they be removed without detection? Is there a way of doing it?
Not generally speaking, no. If you cut them off, it will set off an alarm. I think in the early days there were some cases where the tagging companies would fit tags to false legs and this sort of thing, and people would remove the tags, which is quite funny, but obviously a worry. Generally speaking, they will set off an alert if the tag is removed. But again, there have been issues where Serco haven't relayed that as quickly as they should have to probation. I think part of the problem here, the risk of sounding, like a raging lefty, is that actually it's not really very sensible to have this outsourced. I think it would make much more sense if probation operated the tagging. As it works currently, you on the day you're released from prison, you go to the probation office, you meet your probation officer, then you go home, and at some point the tagging company is supposed to come over and tag you. All of that could happen at the probation office. All of that could be happening within one system, and I think we'd have an easier process then.
Let's look at these sentences of under a year, of less than a year, where this will mostly be applied. Not always, though. There will be people who have released earlier, having served 40% or whatever, as we've seen before. But let's take that as the standard, where a court will be advised not to imprison anyone that they give a lighter sentence to, that this would be the first point of call, would be tagging. That's what we're looking at. Those sentences of less than a year, do they do anything? Are they good for anything? Are we going to lose some part of the justice system by not jailing people for, let's say, 10 months?
This is a complicated one. So it is true that short sentences under 12 months have a really high reoffending rate, something like 60%. There's not really enough time for people to do educational courses, so they seem to be pretty disruptive. But I think what's important to remember is that the people who get prison sentences of less than 12 months are in most cases quite prolific offenders. You are unlikely to go to prison for the first offence for less than 12 months. So usually these people have committed a lot of crimes in the past. It might be acquisitive crimes, particularly shoplifting. It might be drug crimes, disorder, low-level violence. So again, they're quite complicated people, and it's not clear to me that they'll be the easiest people to manage on a tag. This isn't releasing low-risk, middle-aged men who just want to go and work in a job and have a quiet life. These are people who have a lot of difficulties in their current lives, and they need more intervention than a tag, even though prison probably doesn't do much good for them either.
So in some cases, then, it would still serve the public and the offender to spend some time incarcerated.
Well, I think the obvious benefit is that it stops people offending. So if you have a prolific shoplifter, let's say, at some point you have to send that person to prison. You can't just keep not imprisoning them, because rightly local people in that area, the local shopkeepers will say this isn't on. And we can't have an environment where shoplifting, for example, becomes effectively decriminalised because no one goes to jail for it. That would be disastrous, because we just see more and more shoplifting. So It's a tough one. I mean, there is almost an argument, actually, that longer sentences would be more effective because, yes, short sentences are very high on reoffending rates. Once you go over about 4 years, reoffending rates drop significantly. So I think this is probably going against everything the sentencing review is going to say and everything that most people argue for. But actually, if anything, if you've got these prolific offenders, it might make more sense if we are going to jail for longer so they can spend some time in treatment programs and courses and we can actually try to turn their lives around.
That brings me to the new idea as well that's being touted, that judges will give a minimum and a maximum in terms of sentence, instead of saying the minimum you will serve is 25 years before parole hearings. But if they now say that the plan now is to say, right, your minimum will be 5 years if you're a good boy or girl and you do all these studies, your maximum will be 15 years if you don't. What do you make of that? Do you think that would work with prisoners? Will that? Because I don't mind anything that stops another victim, right? I'm open for everything if it prevents another victim. My fear is that it won't. So is that a good way of getting prisoners to concentrate on a life after jail in order to get a massive sentence reduction? Or is that just being too soft?
I mean, I actually think this is a really good idea. This is effectively time off for good behaviour, which people might assume we have in our system currently, but we haven't for a few decades. And the idea is that if you come into prison and you behave really well, you follow the rules, you're not violent, you don't take drugs, you participate in education, you get work skills, whatever it might be, then you can earn an earlier release. Whereas if you behave badly, if you're violent, you take drugs, you cause problems, you're going to be out much later. That creates incentives, and prisoners are just like everyone else. They do respond to incentives. So if you create a situation where staying out of trouble means you get out years earlier, I think it will improve behaviour. And ultimately, that's what we want. We want people to be participating in good efforts to change their life. The risk is, though, and the concern I have, is that this will have to be managed by prison staff. And we've had quite a lot of incidents just in the last year of corrupt staff and corrupt governors in the news. And I think the risk is if you have corrupt or poorly trained or, just easily manipulated, easily conditioned staff interacting with smart, organised criminals, those people might be able to game their way through the system much quicker than we'd want. Whereas on the other hand, let's say an autistic prisoner who has difficulty communicating effectively might be labelled as, obstructive or difficult and actually spend years in prison when that's not really the ideal outcome.
So how could that be better managed then? Because I'm with you. I fear that there are, of course, a lot of criminals are manipulative. It's one of their core skills. So how do we mitigate for that, in your view? Would it be an external, oversight?
It's quite hard to do external oversight because essentially you're talking about prison staff making value judgments about the people they encounter on a day-to-day basis. I think where it needs to come from is in the management culture. There's a big disconnect between frontline officers and management. I was at the Prison Officers Association conference last week and talking to lots of frontline prison officers, and they often have real difficulty with management. They feel the prison governors haven't spent enough time on the landings. They often stay in their offices. Some of them work from home some days, and they're not really convinced that their management understand the job. So I think getting prison governors back out on the landings, making sure those governors are leading and enforcing a consistent standard of behaviour and consistent rules, that's really step one, and that's not happening in most prisons at the moment.
And what do you think the public will... How do you think the public will respond to this? There's already a belief that we are getting softer and softer on crime, that it's all about the perpetrator, the victim often gets forgotten, and there are always victims, one way or the other, in these cases. Do you think that it will be an acceptable step forward for the public who might have, fallen victim?
I think the truth is it's going to be a really tough sell. if it brings down reoffending, it brings down crime, and therefore we see fewer victims, I think people will ultimately be okay with it. But if it doesn't work, and if probation struggle to cope with the additional people they're managing, if the prisons don't manage to implement these early releases in a way which is fair, and we just see more crime and more organised crime gang guys out on the streets early, I think it'll become very unpopular very quickly. So it's very high stakes for the government.
And how do you feel about technology? I mean, again, my fear is that this use of technology, and now they're talking about predictive AI as well, to predict if somebody is likely to break the law again in the future, that we're pushing offenders further away from that human. You've mentioned it before, that a lot of these people have very complicated, chaotic lives and need more support. They need help with mental health issues. We know that is going to be difficult at the moment with the way the NHS is. They need help with drug addiction or all sorts of addictions and issues. But it seems to me that we're in danger of pushing people further away from that kind of human touch that they might need to improve, and just leaving it to a technology. I mean, I'm terrified by anything that says AI and predictive by it, because to predict behaviours, we're going into a whole different world, right? So does that concern you? We're beginning to sort of overuse technology when these are human beings at the end of the day?
Yeah, it does. I've heard people, very senior people within the Ministry of Justice talk about this idea they have for the future, the prison of 2050. And in this, they imagine everything being mediated through technology. They imagine prisoners wearing a wristband, which will tell them when they have to go to classes, tell them when they have to go for food, allow them to communicate with everyone within the prison, will measure their biometrics, so you'll know if they're getting sick, if they've taken drugs, all this sort of stuff. And I think there is some place for using technology to monitor health and improve things like that, but it does seem like it's a model which strips away the human relationships. And actually, when I think about everyone who I know from prison who changed in a really positive way, that change came from relationships, and that ultimately is what drives people's choice to live a better life. And yeah, I think too much technology strips that away, and we turn it into process and database and machine, and none of those things will actually help people improve their lives.
It's absolutely fascinating talking to you, David. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. David Shipley there, former prisoner and now prisoner's advocate. Quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you. And coming up at midnight is the phone-in, and I really want to talk to you about this latest idea by our Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who's understood to be in the process of buying more than 30,000 more electronic tags for prisoners, the assumption being that if you get a sentence for less than a year, that you will not serve any of that time behind bars. Instead, you will be tagged. Usually that means that you are confined to your home between 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. Does that, if I was a victim of a crime, I don't think I know I wouldn't be satisfied with that, to be perfectly honest with you. I would not say that that was punishment enough, because I do think there should be an element of punishment. But if it works, if it keeps families together, if it keeps people in work, if it keeps people steady and not learning bad things in prison, then, you know, I suppose we have to suck it up and just say, well, look, the real aim is that some punishment, but mainly that these people don't commit further crimes and create more victims. But I do think that this is ignoring the victim. But look, I'd like to hear from you. Do you work for the probation service? I'd love it if you called. I'd love to hear from you if you work for the probation services or ever did. I'd love to know if you've ever served a prison sentence of under a year, because I want to try and understand what disruption that caused your life that you couldn't put back together, what damage that caused, and whether you would have preferred, I'm sure most people would prefer a tag, right, rather than go to prison. But I'm just trying to assess whether this will actually work. I mean, look, we want it to work, right? We want it to work because we want fewer victims and we want people to become law-abiding, stand-up citizens in our society. I don't think it's as simple as that. I mean, you know, as David was just saying there, these are human beings with very complex, often very complex lives, chaos and complexities that they need more than just to be put on tag and told to be home by 7 o'clock in the evening. And also, does that stop them from committing crimes during the rest of the day? But would that stop a drug taker, or a drug addict from mugging somebody for a couple of quid to go and buy a hit of some description? I don't know. So I need your experience from this. Have you been tagged? And did it feel like punishment? Did it feel like you were being punished? And I think the question we would ask, wouldn't it be, if you're a criminal, would you prefer a year at home or a year in prison? And every single time they're going to say a year at home, right? So is it punishment enough? I'd love to hear from you on this. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Now, though, I have some potentially exciting news for you.
Commander Hosken.
Agent Rom. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to track down the cast of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and interview them. Do you accept?
I accept.
This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. So there you go. Tune in tomorrow night to find out if Josh Rom was indeed successful with his mission. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here, and joining me now is Fab Fevzi Turkout, editor of the Gadget Detective.com and host of the Gadget Detective podcast. Hello there, Fevzi, how are you?
I'm suitably fab, thank you.
You are, in my view, totally fab. Right, talk me through some of these fabulous gadgets that you've got. And Anker laptop power bank.
Right, so a power bank is essentially a portable battery that we charge up before we go out, and we use it to top up our devices, things like smartphones, tablets, sometimes laptop computers. So a small power bank would be something like this. This is designed to charge up phones and tablets, but it's not really very useful for charging laptops. So we've got this thing from Anker. It's called a laptop power bank. And if you can actually see this, I'll turn it on. Yeah, and you see it's 100% charged there. It's got a nice OLED screen on it. Now this thing's got a capacity of 25,000 milliamp hours. So that's about 2.5 times one of the smaller ones. But also it's just below the limit of what you can take in hand luggage on an airplane. So I think that one limits at about 27,000. This is 25,000. So it's just under the limit. In addition to that, it solves a couple of neat problems other than the capacity it carries. So this is good for topping up your laptop, but it can actually top up 4 devices at once. And it's got the cables built into it, or at least some of them. So if I show you here, we've got this, and then...
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
You can see, it's over 2 feet long. So that's good. But if one cable is not enough for you, see this carry handle here? That is also another USB-C connector on there. Yeah, and it's quite robust. It's a sort of woven cable, so it's good. And then on the side, you've got another 2. You've got a USB-C and a USB-A, the traditional one. So in principle, you could charge up to 4 devices at once, up to 165 watts flowing out at the same time. Obviously, the more you charge at once, the less quickly each one charges. But it is quite remarkable, and the display is really nice. It not only tells you, how much battery life you've got left, but it shows you how much power is going to each of the devices that you're charging. So this thing is list price is £90, so they're not cheap. It's currently on Amazon for 80. I bought this one with my own money, but when I got it on a special deal for £55.
Oh wow!
So what I would say to you is keep a careful eye on it. If you go to a website like camel.com, we've spoken about it before, you can drop in the link to this product, okay, and it's called the Anker laptop power bank. There are other similar ones from Anker, so get the right one, and then you put that as a reminder in there, and then you can say anytime it drops even by a penny or to a certain price or below, send me a notification. So you don't have to keep logging into Amazon or Anker to see what's happening with the price. So that's a good deal. So I've given it 4.5 stars out of 5, but that's assuming that you can get it for less than 80. At £80, I'd give it 4 out of 5. It's a really nice device because, especially if you've got a laptop that you've had for a couple of years, the battery probably wasn't great to start with. It will deplete over the years that you use it. So you might only get a couple of hours, but something like this could recharge an entire laptop battery and give you an extra couple of hours. So it can be really very valuable, it's particularly if you're traveling or you're a student and you don't necessarily have access to wall sockets all the time.
Well,
these
really power banks are becoming really popular at the moment, aren't they? With threats of hackers and all sorts of things, and what happened in Spain where they lost all their power. So it's probably not a bad idea to have some form of power bank anyway, is it, at the moment?
Yeah, so these are good, but these are designed for powering USB devices. They don't have a main socket to run something that would require, but they do. Anker do they do a range called Solix, SOLIX, and those things are big. I mean, and they can power your house for a period, you know, the really big ones. And you can get solar panels for them as well. So if you
That's a
want to
good
be
plan.
all green on it, you can do that. So yeah, it's really very good. And the battery technology's improved a lot. So with a lot of them, instead of getting like 500 recharge cycles, you get about 2,000.
Yeah,
So it's really
that is really
very
good.
good. I must admit, I'm addicted. I mean, you know, I last time I confessed my synthesizer addiction.
Yeah.
My secondary addiction is power banks. I think I've purchased somewhere between 20 and 30 of
Oh
them.
my goodness, you're the man to go to if there's a zombie apocalypse then.
Yeah, especially if you want to supply zombies. Yeah, I can do that. So moving on from there, we've got a home security system. It's
Right.
three security cameras and a base that stores all the footage of those three cameras. It's from Eufy, EUFY, and it's called the Security Eufycam 2C. It's a three camera kit. Beware, because there are two camera and one camera kits as well. But this one comes with three cameras. It shoots in full HD, so it's not the same high quality that you get with a 2K or even 4K cameras. But for many uses, it's enough, you know, and it's affordable. So the thing to say about it is this used to be £230. It's now £129.99, which is 43% reduction. They run off batteries, so they're quite easy to install. What you do is you just charge them up every 6 months, and then they go for 6 months. You could put in a solar panel if you wanted, but once every 6 months you go up a ladder, you take it down, or you reach up and you take it down. But it's really very good. They're weatherproof against water and dust, and the really nice thing about it is there's no monthly fee. So with most of these
Yeah.
cameras, you have to pay a monthly fee or an annual fee, and it can run into. I pay a couple of £100 for mine for a different brand. This one, in addition to the three cameras, you get something called a home base, which is not to be confused with the defunct retailer. But what that does is it stores on a solid state drive, a standard solid state drive inside, all your footage. Whenever there's been a movement, it will send the footage.
So it's
and you can store
motion
it.
triggered.
Yeah, it's motion triggered, and the nice thing is that it takes standard solid state drives, you know, the same sort that you would put in for example, a laptop. So they keep getting more capacious and cheaper. So by the time you've run out of space, you can buy one for a reasonable amount, and it'll probably see you through the rest of your natural life, because they're just getting so huge in capacity and so cheap or so affordable. So that's really nice. They haven't gone the proprietary route. So it's not just that it's £130 to buy. It's that it doesn't cost you £100 or £200 a year in fees.
Yeah, that's
that-
really,
yeah.
really good, actually, isn't it?
So 4 stars out of 5 for that.
That is excellent. Next.
Next two gadgets, I'll treat them as a pair. They're both from a company called Molecule, which is, as you would think, but with a K instead of a U. These are expensive air purifiers, but they are probably the best air purifiers I've ever seen. So there's two of them. There's the Air Pro, and then there's the Air Mini Plus. So they're very similar, just different in size. Why does the size matter? It affects the size of the room that you can purify. So with the big one, you can do a room that's 1,000 square feet, which is quite substantial.
Huge.
But this is expensive, right? So the big one is reduced from 799 to 680, which is just
Right.
a shade on 680. Still a lot of money, but if you suffer from allergies, if you're worried about health, if you've got someone who's immunosuppressed in the house, I think it's worth paying for this sort of thing, because it not only traps viruses, bacteria, mold, allergens and odors, but it actually destroys them. It has their own proprietary technology called PECO, PECO, and it does it in a very clever way. It doesn't produce ozone. So the ones that I've been using up until this point, they zap what they catch in the filter using ozone, because ozone kills bugs. But the problem, with ultraviolet light. But the problem with ultraviolet light is it produces ozone, which is
Right.
itself a health hazard. So on the one hand, you're pulling hazardous stuff out of the air, and on the other hand, with the other ones, you're producing ozone, which is arguably hazardous as well. So this doesn't do that. It kills everything. It traps down to 0.3 microns, And although they make no claims for bugs like COVID, I do note that that's about the order of magnitude of a COVID bug. So there has been some research, the manufacturer makes no claims for this at all, but I've read some research where they put standalone purifiers in schools and they dropped the infection rate by about 15% by just having air purifiers running. So really good. So the big one is normally 800 down to 679.99, 4 stars out of 5. The smaller one, which is very similar, both of them work with an app. Both of them have their own sensors, by the way, so they sense when the air is polluted and they fire themselves up and set the appropriate speed. So they're quiet enough to run overnight. You can sleep with them in the room. They respond to Alexa commands, and they have their own app. So the smaller one, normally $349.99 down to $255, so 27% off. Both of them 4 stars out of 5. Do I have time for one more?
Yep. Yes, you do.
Okay. The next one is a projector. So this is if
I
you
want
don't
a projector. That's why I said yes, even though we haven't got much time.
Well, it's interesting because I was at a friend's house the other day and she had a 77-inch TV set, and I couldn't steal it because it was just too heavy. You know, and she couldn't move it around the place either. I mean, 4 guys brought it into her home, and he would need that number of people to move it again. This is a portable projector. It's not small that will fit in your pocket, but you can see it's got a carry handle on it, so you can move it easily from room to room, or you could take it on a road trip with you. Project it on the side of a building or a tent or anything like that, and it's got a number of quite unique features. First of all, so it's called the Anchor Nebula Cosmos laser 4K printer. I get that right. The laser bit is important because of the laser technology. The image is much brighter, and one of the major downsides of projector technology is that they're just generally not as bright as a TV screen. You know, you tend to have to dim the lights in order to be able to watch the image. But the laser ones, you can use them without dimming the lights. They produce a bright, sharp image. It is a true 4K image. It's got, because of its size, it's got room for powerful speakers. So, you know, with TV sets, they get thinner and thinner every year, but you know, you cannot break the laws of physics, and the sound from a TV set is really poor because there's no depth for the speakers, whereas this thing is big and chunky. It's got dual tweeters, big speakers, fill a room with sound. It's also got Android TV version 10 inside it, which is the same gubbins technology as in a mobile phone, a smartphone, so it can run apps. So whilst you can use it like a conventional projector where you plug things into it, like a Blu-ray player, for example, you don't have to stream something from your phone or your tablet to it, although you can do that as well. This thing, because it connects to Wi-Fi, runs its own apps, and then so you can access about 400,000 films and shows from the apps that you can run internally.
And quickly, Fevsy, the cost?
Cost was £2,000, now $889, which is a 55% reduction.
I mean, that is amazing.
Still not cheap, but if you compare it to the cost of a large screen television.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's the way it's going to go, isn't it? It's all going to be projected. We're not going to bother with tellies soon. Fevsy, thank you. They're brilliant. Lovely to see you, and I'll see you very soon. Fevsy Turkup, there, editor of the GadgetDetective.com and host of the Gadget Detective podcast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour, Amy Fischer will be in the studio to go through the papers. But right now, we're going to join the man, Van Connor, our film critic. Van, how are you? It has been way too long, my friend.
I know, it's been a minute, hasn't it, Petrie?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was making sure I'm not on mute. I keep putting this thing on mute. It's just good to see you. How are you? How's the dog?
Well, I've got another one now. I've got a puppy now as well. So I know. I'm going to have to send you a photograph. You're going to fall in like he's amazing. Anyway, look, let's talk movies. I am a huge fan of the Final Destination. I mean, I hate horror.
That's my girl.
But I
That's
love
my girl
it
right there.
because it's quite funny in a way. You can see it all coming, and I think it's great. But they've resurrected it now is this the final one or not? The final?
No. I think when you have the fourth one and they titled it The Final Destination, and then they made a fifth one and just called it Final Destination 5, I think we gave up on any semblance of a stoppage. I think it's been about 14 years since the last one, since Final Destination 5. I think that was 2011.
Wow.
I think I just started reviewing movies when that last one came out. They took a break. The franchise was seemingly dead. It's now 25 years this year since the very first one, so they've made a new one that might be the biggest, boldest one yet, that actually wraps, sort of unintentionally but not convolutingly, all of it up in kind of a shared mythology, and even gives us both a cathartic and emotionally resonant arc and goodbye for the late great Tony Todd, who plays the coroner in this series. And
a busy coroner.
Very busy coroner. So obviously, if you've seen one Final Destination movie, you know the formula for them all.
Yeah.
A teenager has a premonition of a disaster in which everyone dies, then snaps back to reality, sees it's about to happen, averts the disaster, and because they've meddled with Death's plan, Death comes for them and picks them off one by one in a series of Rube Goldberg-like traps.
Weird. It's made me really conscious of having a sort of knife.
The marble hits the spoon, which knocks the tap, which knocks the wrench.
It's like the mousetrap. It's like that game, The Mousetrap. Right, I mean, it's brilliant. I love it because you can literally see it about to happen, and it fills me with joy. I don't know why. We've got a clip.
We have this time around, just to let you know, the big disaster is a Space Needle-like restaurant coming down, and potentially hundreds of people having to be bumped off by Death. So this is Tony Todd explaining how this works.
So, which one of you is next?
Iris said that you'd found somebody who stopped Death and survived.
Yes.
And how do we do that?
There are only two ways. By killing or by dying. If you take a life, you get the time that person had left.
What? No, I'm not gonna kill someone. Maybe we should let the guy finish.
Then to truly break the cycle, you have to die.
Do you see, Van, I don't remember that bit about if you kill someone, you get the time they had left. That wasn't it.
They've added more rules to the mythology as the sequels have gone on. I
thought
think
that was new.
It sort of loosely makes sense. I do watch the first 5 of these somewhat regular, like every year and a half or so. But I wouldn't say I really pay that much attention to the mythology.
No, that's true.
You're watching it for the deaths.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a Saw movie. You're watching it for the deaths, and this does not disappoint.
No, I mean, I think they're a really good franchise. Actually, I don't mind more of them. It's in cinemas now, right?
It is, and it's in IMAX for I think about the rest of today, because as of maybe until Friday, because Mission Impossible is going to take over IMAX at that point. So we're going from one IMAX
is going to take over
another.
everything. Yeah, I mean, that's just the truth. Just very quickly, what is the classification on Final Destination?
On Final Destination, I believe I've not actually checked. I believe it's a 15.
Yeah.
But it's possible it might tip over. I would be shocked if it tipped over into 18.
Yeah, they'll make sure it's just under that. It'll be a 15 on that. So, talking of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, will it be? Probably not. But this is the second half.
Yeah.
Because we've seen one half, and then this is the second half.
Yes, and we had Dead Reckoning Part 1 2 years ago, and then by the time that thing hit home release, because the movie had underperformed, they blamed it on the fact that nobody was interested in this Part 1, Part 2 nonsense, so they dropped the Part 1, and it is now just Dead Reckoning. So Part 2 is here, and it's called The Final Reckoning, which also confusingly suggests it's the series finale, even though it really doesn't need to be.
No.
Part 2 of that story, though, in which the IMF force the team led by Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt, are on the trail of a key that can control an AI known as the Entity, which started out as a spy program and has now basically turned into the new Skynet and can put out fake news and alter CCTV and things like that on the fly. The previous movie involved them getting the key. This movie, put simply, involves them getting to the lock. And yes, it's that half of it. It's getting to the source code of this AI, which happens to be in a submarine under the Arctic Ocean. And in order to get there, Ethan Hunt has to go and ask the last people in the universe that he ever should for a favor. He goes and asks the US government. So that's a clip I've got for you now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I didn't love the first half of this, I have to be honest, but I do want to. I didn't. I thought it meandered. I thought it was trying very hard to be the first half. It could have been shorter, but I am interested in seeing. I love the Mission Impossible franchise as well, so I'm happy to see it.
You're not alone in that assessment of the previous half. I've had a good time with it myself personally, but I know that it is quite a widely held opinion the first half was quite disappointing. No, I love the Mission Impossible movies like you. I had a great time with this, but my God, it's a mess. Like, it's overlong. It's 2 3/4 hours long. Whoa. The first hour of it has, I think I lost count at 3 montages. Like 3 montages that we had. At one point, they're recapping in time. The movie presumes that you've never seen a Mission Impossible movie before, despite the fact that at one point this was part 2 of 2, chapter 8 of 8. You know, it's the most deranged thing. Every single line of dialogue in the first hour is a monologue, not dialogue, a monologue.
To explain what's happened.
Everybody speaks in this bizarre, grandiose, pseudo-Shakespearean twaddle. Like, we exist in shadows and we service the entity's world now. You're like, what? People don't call it. Anyway, then you get about an hour into it and the spy stuff actually starts happening and Ethan Hunt gets to hang off of things.
Great.
And all of a sudden, you're strapped on in and you have such a good time you didn't care about the previous hour.
Okay.
That's basically how this goes. There is no other action movie like this. I've said it before, and I can now stand by it. That the best Bond movie made this century isn't even half as good as the worst Mission Impossible. And having now seen the worst Mission Impossible movie, I know that that's accurate. That's the best part.
You say this is the worst one, that it's better than a Bond.
I think this is the worst Mission Impossible movie, but still better than any Daniel Craig Bond movie. And Pierce Brosnan's Die Another Day, which is the only other one made this century.
Rubbish as well.
Oh, no, I will stand by that. I will happily lay my guns on the line for that.
For Pierce Brosnan?
I would say the first 3 Pierce Brosnan movies are better than any of the Daniel Craig ones of this genre.
Oh, that is controversial. That is controversial.
I'll go there.
Well, there might be fisticuffs. But listen, I love a bit of Ethan Hunt. I think that he's probably peaking age-wise to be able to do this again. But you've got Simon Pegg in it, and anything with Simon Pegg in it is all right by me.
Yeah, and he gets a little bit more time in the spotlight than usual this time around. He actually gets put into like a position of like leadership here and there, and kind of struggles with it, gets a bit awkward about it, so has to gain the confidence. And Simon Pegg, who I never really rated as an actor,
I
thought this whole Mission Impossible thing was kind of a lark. I think he really pulls it out of the bag for this.
Yeah, no, I think he's great. I mean, I've loved everything he's done. You know, World's End and Shaun of the Dead and all of those. I think he's underrated, and I think he's great. So I'm looking forward to it. I really am looking forward to that. Van, thank you, my love, and I will see you very, very soon. Take care. So Van Connor there. And as I was saying or hinting earlier, tomorrow's programme, we have a special Mission Impossible. We have the most incredible guests. We have exclusive interviews all tomorrow. So make sure you tune in at 10.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it's good to have your company, and with me I have Amy Fischer, who is a former communications director for the Conservative Party. It's lovely to see. We're just discussing our love of painting right now. Just discovered that about each other after all this time. Now, listen, before we get into the papers, I did want to ask you about this, and that is Britain investing in 30,000 more electronic tags for prisoners with this new sentencing review, and the idea, it seems, is that people who are given less than a year in terms of a custodial sentence, on the whole, will not serve that in custody. They will serve it on tag. Do you think this is what people, potential victims, would expect from a government tough on crime, or?
So look, I think there are a number of problems with this, and I did used to work in the MO in the Ministry of Justice. So it is this idea of tech being the answer to the problem we have in prisons. It is certainly not a new one. It's one I'm very familiar with. So this is the problem the government has got, right? We're basically running at prison capacity. There just sort of aren't enough prison places left. Yes, the government has committed to building some new prisons, but building new prisons takes 2, 3, 5 years. You know, that's not going to immediately help. As I say, there's absolute squeeze on capacity. Very quickly after the government came in last year, they started releasing people early, if we remember that. And now they've gone sort of even further down the route of essentially getting rid of short sentences, less than a year, and the kind of the panacea, the sort of reassurance around that is, oh, but we're going to tag them. My issues with that are sort of twofold. One, I mean, where is all the tech going to come from very quickly? Yes, we currently do tag people, and there can be some relatively sophisticated ways of tagging people. So not just putting them on a curfew, not just making sure they're literally in a named address, you know, sort of 12 hours overnight. We can sort of test whether people, through their sweat, whether they've been taking alcohol or drugs. Drugs is a bit more difficult, but certainly alcohol tagging can actually be very effective if you've been given a no drinking order as part of your sentence. So look, to some degree, some tech is there, but rolling it out so quickly on such a scale, I'm not entirely sure that that's been completely thought through and is logistically sort of possible. Relatedly, in terms of the pure logistics, certainly I know that some of the firms that were used back when, as I say, back in the MOJ when I was there as a special advisor, some of the firms that run this tagging, sort of Serco and the like, I mean, they were tagging dead people. Yeah. Right.
And putting tags on wooden legs or
all of this,
fake
all
legs,
of it were being cut off. But literally, as I say, there were cases of people that Serco thought were live tags, they were dead people. So you know, the questions around the efficacy of the people doing this tagging, even if you got the kit, the questions around the efficacy of then the people running the tagging. And then underlying all of that is the fact that we do have a really big problem with repeat offending in this country. We're kind of outliers in Europe, actually, of people just going round and round the system, kind of endlessly racking up scores, if not hundreds, of convictions. And none of that's going to be solved by tagging. No. Tagging is basically a way, I think the government is trying to use tech to manage their way out of this acute problem they have with the prison places, but it's not addressing the chronic problem, which is that we have too many people going round and round and round the system. Well, and tagging's not going to solve that bit.
No, because a lot of those people, I was discussing this earlier, they have very complex and chaotic lives, a lot of them. A lot of them are addicts of some kind, or that they've had mental health trauma, and that is not being solved. You know, drug addiction, in my view, it should not be something that you're imprisoned for. You need help.
Nor mental
with
health
that,
issues,
or nor
actually.
mental health issues. So that I think we've got to get to grips with. And I do worry, like you said, with tech. Now they're talking about using predictive AI to see if they think that somebody will future. I mean, we're looking at,
wasn't this, I mean, I know you were just talking about the latest
but yeah, I remember it really well. They about that, but also what was the time. That a lot of us think that it's not the information live. So, for example, so it's another 58. Somebody else. Yes, close to that front door or goes in that front door, I imagine the police turning up immediately.
It's not.
It just tells you where they have been.
Yeah, there's not some alarm control kind of real life time thing going off somewhere.
But
at the
I think a lot of
local
people
police
believe
station.
that that's what tagging means. Is that whilst they're in the commission of a crime, they can be stopped doing it. But it's not that at all.
No, and I think this is sort of exactly what I mean about. Tech. We're going to use tech to solve the prisons, but everyone's still going to be monitored. Criminals, they're going to be tagged. I mean, this sort of panacea of tech's going to solve all ills, and particularly in this case, as you say, once you dig down into it, not least the circumstance that you've just provided, it's not preventative.
No,
an alarm's not going to go off if somebody's going near a domestic violence refuge or a school if they're a paedophile. If they've had a kind of parameter put around where they're meant to be going, this will not do that. So to round it up, I slightly hate to sound like the Daily Mail, but this is very much just another step in the kind of soft justice. It started off with not being told about the prisoners being let out early, as I've just said. Now we've got these short sentences disappearing, people being tagged. Actually, just if we're talking about people being let out early, these are people who are sort of serving, 4 years or less. So we're actually talking about some pretty nasty people in this.
Well, I think it's mostly a year, anything under a year, but some of the sentencing does look, these are people who will be let out after serving 40% of a 4-year sentence. So you're right.
Yes, exactly. That's the bit I've slightly confused you. But that exactly the bit we're talking about being let out at 40 when it used to be 50%.
Yeah.
And that's the 4 year.
Exactly.
If you get 4 years for something, you could have done something pretty unpleasant, including sexual, domestic violence. The only people that have been excluded from that are any kind of terrorist-related offences, which good. I mean, thank goodness that bar is there. But otherwise, yes, some pretty unpleasant people are going to be out on the streets sooner than they should be.
And
with,
the tag
frankly,
will not...
safeguards that I don't think are particularly robust in relation to what their original offence will have been.
And also, we've got chaos already with under 9,000 people on tag, people not getting tagged when they've come out of jail and they're supposed to be tagged, and it's taken weeks for Serco or whoever to get around to tagging them. I mean, that's just not good enough. And it just seems that in the desperation to empty the jails, they're missing the point as to what punishment is.
But they're missing the point kind of twofold, because they're not getting the punishment and keeping the public safe bit. They're not getting that bit, but they're also, by just tagging people, not getting the rehabilitation bit.
No.
So they're neither serving the communities that they're meant to be protecting, and nor are they in any way putting, you know, frankly, a criminal on a different pathway. So it's just falling straight in the gap of the middle, as I say, driven by, well, political expediency.
Money.
And money and kind of not much else. And I really do sort of fear where this is going. And one of the things this is probably likely to fuel is, you know, we've already got this horrific explosion of shoplifting. You know, it's kind of covered every week. There's practically a, you know, private members bill in Parliament every week, where people, I literally saw it in my local Sainsbury's about 10 days or so ago, Sunday morning, you know, just sort of popped in to get a few bits and pieces, and a chap just and there was a security guard who was there, and a chap walked in and literally took a stack of, I don't know, like 10 steaks or something off the shelf and just walked out past a security guard. And then I was standing next to this other sort of bloke, and he just sort of said, "Oh, right, do you think we're not paying for food these days?" And then both of us had this kind of nervous giggle of sort of, but we don't really quite know what's just happened.
Well, that's stealing to order, isn't it?
And then
going
the security guard is kind of looking at us, and we're kind of looking at him. And meanwhile, this guy, literally whistling, is walking off down the street with his stack of 10 steaks. And
which will probably end up in a corner shop being resold.
Oh,
That's what happens.
I mean, you know, that guy's got storing up gout if he's eating, you know, 10 steaks over the next 3 days or something. But it was just, it was so blatant.
It's so blatant now.
There was no attempt to put it under a coat or in a bag. It was just literally, you know, out the door.
And
I
can't blame the security guards, because it's like, I'm not going to die on this hill.
Well, quite literally, because they're not security guards are widely told that a lot of, you know, I have several friends actually who work in retail. They are told there was a security guard in one of the big 5 supermarkets about 5 years ago who did give chase to somebody who ended up falling over and hitting their head and died, either was severely then disabled or died. And so now actually security guards are, I mean, they're sort of there as a bit of a deterrent.
Sort of a costume.
Yeah, as if you sort of see somebody eyeing you beadily, maybe you won't take the 8 steaks, but certainly they are given guidance now not... certainly not to physically accost in any way, but not to get there to sort of
the victim
stare.
of that is us.
Yeah.
Because then the prices go up.
Sure.
So we all pay for that. Yeah, and if you constantly do that, and then you're just put on tag, and then you go back out, and there's nothing going to stop you from shoplifting during the day, right? If you're on tag, because you're allowed out during the day.
Exactly.
So you shoplift during the day. Nobody's going to bother catching you. The crime is still happening. You go home between 7 and 7, and that's it. You're home and hose.
But it's sort of the Bill Bratton. Do you remember him, the New York cop who was the one who what was the early 2000s?
Zero tolerance.
The broken windows.
Yeah.
That sort of a bit of graffiti or a broken window isn't just a bit of a graffiti or a bit of an eyesore. Actually, it's kind of the thin end of the wedge, in, you know, with regards to people.
It encourages more people
not
to
respecting property,
behaviour.
not respecting each other, and actually something quite small scale like that really does bleed into much wider criminality. I mean, and that's sort of what I feel about the shoplifting. You know, epidemic sounds rather melodramatic, but if we are at a stage where people just don't think they have to pay for food anymore,
I know,
and doing it with such impunity, you know, in the middle of the day on a main, you know, high street, and as I say, the stories are weekly, if not daily, about people saying, you know, our staff are scared, our staff... And in fact, in Marks and Spencer's worried, the staff do have body-worn cameras.
Oh, God.
Certainly the guy standing around there, you know, when you sort of go in, there is a chap who greets you. I mean, he's not... I mean, it's Marks and Spencer's, they're not literally...
They're very polite.
They're literally not labelled security. There isn't a saying, oh, good morning, madam, type thing. But then they've got the body-type camera, staff and... staff feeling threatened or kind of scared, let alone, as you say, the knock-on cost to the consumer, if businesses are just having to kind of factor in a certain amount of attrition in terms of, you know, people just walking out the door with their
and a lot of
stuff.
people believe that because nothing's going to happen to them, then it's free food, like you said. And those people you can't just always put on tag, because at some point they're going to have to go to jail. But is that considered low level? Is that considered, you know,
what's the cutting point? What's the sort of cut off?
Yeah, if you've done it several times before, what, you know. And I think we're losing track of the victims as well.
But this is actually sort of what I mean about this. In this, shoplifting isn't a victimless crime.
No,
because okay, fine. There's the cost of people also shopping there, but the staff. You know, somebody going to work in Sainsbury's who, let's be honest, is probably on the minimum wage or barefoot, not far off it, and is having to deal with people who
are stealing.
Well, gosh, do I challenge them? If I challenge them, do they become aggressive? You know, so it's not just, oh, Sainsbury's can suck up the cost of somebody stealing 10 steaks. No, it goes to a far wider set of problems.
Yeah, I completely agree. Right, let's just have a quick look at USA Today. Biden's exit takes another sad turn. Joe Biden's exit from American politics was never going to be easy. This is the news, of course, that he is stepping down from all of the politics now because he has advanced, I think, stage 4
prostate
cancer. Yeah. A lot of questions, though, wondering how he could have had that and it not be picked up in his yearly medical, which presidents have to have.
Well, there's quite a senior official, sort of late on Tuesday afternoon, has been actually calling for Joe Biden's wife, Jill, to face some kind of elder abuse charges. The point being, how could you not have known your husband had this aggressive, as you say, stage 4 cancer, whilst he was sort of being wheeled out to debate, and it's a terribly punishing, if nothing else, punishing schedule of trying to be re-elected.
But he may have chosen to do that. I mean, people keep saying, oh, she was a doctor. She's a doctor of education.
It's completely... just because you have the letters in front of your name doesn't really mean that
it doesn't mean you're a medical
able
doctor.
to medically diagnose something.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's metastasised to the bone. It's probably not the best possible news, but look, he's an older man. Usually slows down, cancer usually slows down the older you are. He could have a few more years in him, but I don't think it's a time to be, you know, making comments, which the Republicans are, and they're going, oh, well, this is, you know...
Oh, it just proves we were right, he was never up to it.
It's just like,
exactly. I mean, look, you got your guy in, leave this guy alone
now. Yeah, and they can't take him out of their mouths. It's every sentence now, Joe Biden,
what this did make me think of, I don't know if you caught it, he did an interview with the Today programme a couple of weeks ago where he was talking about the importance of NATO, you know, in the context of obviously, you know, the US not withdrawing because Trump keeps making some sort of strange sounds about exactly, and for all of these, you know, names, frankly, that were thrown around during the US election, like Sleepy Joe and all of this kind of thing, I actually thought that interview was terribly thoughtful, and he was clearly very passionate about it. So, you know, look, I think age will come to all of us one day, right? And as you've just said, this man is in his 80s. Look, Donald Trump won the election. This man does have a health issue. I mean, to what point is it to keep going on about it?
Exactly. And also, pot kettle, the state of Donald Trump's brain.
Oh, when he nearly fell asleep at the Pope's
he
funeral.
did. He was, and also in Qatar or Saudi Arabia, and then he went on and did this unbelievably peculiar speech about Sean Duffy being a lumberjack.
Oh, and how Taylor Swift isn't hot anymore.
Yeah,
but just in the last couple of weeks, there has even for Donald Trump, there has been a slight. Well, the thing that really. It was
absolute
it was
bonkers.
Listening to him talking about how Vladimir Putin had not turned up to the latest,
and it was all because he wasn't there.
But it was like, well, he didn't know that I was going to go, so then I didn't know if he was going to go, so he didn't because I didn't, and then we didn't, and then I didn't, and then now he's not there.
Like teenage girls.
It was just literally, but I genuinely don't know if you're following your own thread of what you just think that you said in that.
I mean, the weave that he did on that conversation about Sean Duffy, and because he was talking about drones, and then he went off on an 18-minute meander and never got back to drones. This is in front of the world and the Saudis and the Qataris and his own people, talking about Sean Duffy being a lumberjack and how he was the best in the world.
It's a classic comedy skit of when you have like a very drunk uncle at a family wedding, and everyone just sort of pretends he's
talking sense.
He's not that drunk because no one quite knows what to do about it. But that guy happens to be the president of the United States.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying is, look, you know, stop picking on Joe Biden, who has now been given this terrible diagnosis. But it does raise questions as to, you know, if these medical things that they have to go through every year are really that good. I mean, look, they told us that Donald Trump was 6'2" and weighed 220 pounds, which is clearly and obviously not true. And that he was healthy because he played golf. That was also in his medical files. But anyway, fired federal workers try to turn the table. This is, of course, all these people fired by Doge. They're trying to make sure that they get their jobs back, particularly in veteran services.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we know that the outcome of Doge now has seen people die in tornadoes.
Well, we've spoken about it before when they sort of, you know, decided they would scrap malaria programs, or, you know, the people that looked after nuclear bunkers. That's literally what I was about to say. And then they sort of decided they'd scrap all these things as being inefficiency and waste, and then sort of went, oh, actually no, it's probably quite a good idea. We actually have people who know how to look after nuclear weapons, or who know how to prevent malaria. Maybe we shouldn't get rid of them.
They got rid of the advanced weather warning people. And now these tornadoes have happened, and 14 plus people have died.
And also the thing about, you know, it sort of being Veterans Affairs folk, you know, for a guy who goes on about MAGA, you know, isn't there a slight dichotomy in there? And that the one that you're sort of, who have literally served the country and made enormous sacrifices, you know, physically, emotionally, you know, they're the ones that are being laid off and told that they're kind of surplus to government requirements for being wasteful.
Yeah, and that's from a man who dodged the draft 5 times, saying that he had ankle spurs or something, I don't know. Right, let's, Amy and I are going to take a very quick break, but we will be back with the UK papers next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
Hello there, this is Talking. It's Petrie here with you, and with me is Amy Fischer, and we're going through Wednesday's newspapers. Right, so a couple of stories here. Trump pushes Britain to spend tens of billions more on defence. President Trump again wants Britain to raise its defence spending by tens of billions of pounds to set an example in Europe. I think that Donald Trump's got to remember he doesn't run the world. That, you know, he can run America into the ground or whatever he's doing with it, but he's got to stop telling other people what to do.
I mean,
if we had the money, we would, wouldn't we?
Well, yes. I mean, this story would actually rather please some sections of, well, certainly the military itself in this country. We've had any number of very senior military chiefs, both past and present, over the last couple of years, warning that Britain isn't spending enough on defence. We do have now the smallest army in terms of headcount that since the Napoleonic times.
Yeah.
So certainly, actually, Britain spending more on defence would please an awful lot of people. As you say, I just don't quite think that one needed Trump to be telling us
Will
to
this be a
do
condition of a tariff drop? I mean, this is what happens with Trump at the moment. It's also convoluted, and he's using this tariff stick and thinking that he can use that to get everything that he thinks should be the case. Look, we know we've got to spend more money on defence. It is very clear that we haven't been spending enough. Neither has the rest of Europe. Donald Trump is right about that.
Germany, I mean, has been particularly sort of slack.
Particularly slack. And look, we've talked about this before and said, look, Trump's got a point. We did need to pay more into NATO. But it's got nothing to do with President Trump setting the sums of money and saying you should be, showing the rest of Europe what to do. Look after your own country's in enough trouble. Look after that.
There's that. There's also, and you and I have spoken about the sort of special relationship before, and I think you're a bit more. I was about to say you're a bit more sceptical about it, or whatever vestiges there might be about it, than I am. But there is sort of a point in all of this again, which kind of. I didn't understand why, in how we seem to be reversing Brexit by, giving the French a greater sort of fish quota for the next 12 years would mean that we could be part of some sort of, in some way, defence fund. In all of this, Europe, America, they need Britain as much as we need them, right? So it doesn't need to be...
More so, because we're a nuclear power.
Well, that... So being part of a Western democratic defence bloc, as I say, be it sort of with Europe or any alignment with the US, doesn't need to be sort of contingent on these other things that people seem to be bolting onto it, because it's quite literally that mutually assured, as Western democracies, it is that kind of mutually assured we all actually do need to look out for each other, because there are these scary threats from China, Russia, goodness knows what might spill out of India, Pakistan, want to take nuclear potshots at each other. So, as I say, be it Trump kind of saying things might be contingent on Britain spending more on defence, albeit what has just happened with this closer, alignment with the EU, and the French were none too shy about saying, yes, to be more closely aligned with us on defence, you need to give us more of your fish. I mean, the French were blatant.
Well, it's
about
not more, is it?
That.
It's the same amount for longer.
But the same amount for longer.
Yeah.
But greater rights to fishing waters. I think we can both agree on. I just don't sort of understand why Britain needed to have any of those contingencies put on our plate, because, as I say, as much as we're looking outward towards Europe and America to keep all of us safe, as I say, from these other threats, they're looking at us for the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd been Starmer, I would have said, listen, don't forget we've got nuclear weapons and you're going to need us. And Germany knows that. Germany's already said, look, we need Britain and we need France.
Yeah.
Because they're the only ones that can. Yeah. And I would have definitely have been tougher on that. But look, I'm just so bored of. I really am bored of Trump thinking he runs the world, and he's sticking his nose in and he's taking all these freebies. I've never seen anything like it. I will never understand how any of this has been allowed to happen and continue to go on. So
I think it's because about the freebies, about the Qatari plane or jet to replace Air Force One or whatever it is.
But it's not. It's going into his private
exactly
pocket.
All of that just seems very murky. And
have you not heard the latest on that as well? That apparently they approached the Qataris about it.
Yes, but about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago.
Not like a spontaneous gesture. That is.
They've been begging for a plane.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it wasn't a gift.
But I think the problem is, he's so shameless.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because we're British or just sort of he's so outside the norms of behaviour. Every time he does something, you're a bit like, what? sorry, what if you've done, and almost before one has quite had time to recover from that, he's done something else mad. I mean, you just listed all the bonkers things he's done in basically the last week. Like, one is reeling from trying to absorb or rationalise the latest thing, but he's already gone off and done something else. So, you know, we, the public, are then buffeted around on this sort of global political scale as this one man, as you say, seems to think he's on some messianic mission to dictate to literally everybody else.
Yeah, literally everybody. And there are some questions now when he keeps talking about this $1.4 trillion deal, that's not in American dollars. That's in Qatari dollars. So that's about 200 billion. Which is still good, right?
We're still good.
But it's not 1.4 trillion.
Literally, my instinctive reaction at that was just like, I literally shrugged my shoulders because, like, of course it's not. Of course it's not straightmeforward. Of course it's not completely
well, it's
clear
more
what
than
he's
their
talking
GDP
about.
for a start. I mean, $1 trillion is probably their GDP. So why, I mean, it's just... Anyway, and he gets to build a Trump Tower in Syria, and he gets to build one, having said, oh, he seems like a good bloke. What? He was your enemy a few years ago, killing American soldiers. And now he's a good bloke, and you're going to lift sanctions, and you're going to get a tower, and you're going to get one in Qatar, and you're going to get a golf course in Saudi Arabia.
But also the Trump Tower that I've seen in New York is really unimpressive. Yeah. As in, I remember wandering up and down the street for a while going, where is this Trump Tower? And then eventually you went, oh,
it's that.
Oh, right, it's that
1970s concrete building.
Yes, I should sort of try and get a picture of this or something.
I think a man that has to keep building towers says something about him, frankly. Let's have a break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, it's Petrie here, and with me is Amy Fischer, former Director of Comms at the Conservative Party. Just before we finish with the Times, UK ready to sanction top Israelis over Gaza. I think this is David Lammy called the Israeli, what are they called? Diplomats in today, didn't they?
Yes.
Are we going to have to tell them to leave London at some point?
I mean, his statement in the House of Commons on Tuesday afternoon was pretty something. Very strong in its condemnation of Israel's aims in Gaza and what it's attempting to do there. He did get, when he sort of promised, you know, he made it clear that the British government does not agree with what the Israeli government is trying to do, and then sort of promised, you know, firmer action if the Israelis didn't pause in some way. He was then pressed pretty hard by MPs from all sides, including his own, as to exactly what that might mean. Yeah. To which there wasn't at this stage much of an answer above and beyond the immediate of yes, having called in the ambassador, which may seem like quite a weak thing to call in somebody to have a bit of a chat, but actually in diplomatic terms,
this is calling to the headmaster,
really telling off. And the fact it hasn't really ever been done with the Israeli ambassador before. So it'll be interesting to see what falls out of the next couple of days, because on this, the British government is quite closely aligned. So that the French government, the Italian government, they've all been making, well, pretty much everybody, even the US, if not quite so overtly. I mean, their frustration with the Israeli government is pretty clear. So where Israel is going to go over the next 36, 48
Well, they don't
hours
care,
will
do
be
they? I
quite
mean, we
something
applied
to
those
watch.
sanctions, and he just went, well, if you want to punch yourself in the face, go ahead and do it. We don't care. That was their reaction.
I mean, one wonders, as I say, because it's quite something for a British government to be so direct in saying to Israel, what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah, but Lammy has stopped short of describing it as genocide.
He has, and he sort of again, he was pressed on that point. He said, that's not a word I'm going to put on this at this point. I mean, subtext being, but that is what it looks like. I mean, he said he wasn't going to use the word, but he didn't slap the word away, if that makes sense.
And also it's very clear that it's at the very least at this point ethnic cleansing.
Well, I mean, didn't Netanyahu himself sort of talk about cleansing?
He's not going to get rid of them all.
He used
wants
the word.
The Gaza Strip. And that he's been emboldened by America for that as well. Let's have a look at the Daily Telegraph. Rayner's secret plan to tax savers. A leaked memo reveals split at the heart of government between the Deputy PM and Reeves. Minister demands that Chancellor target pensions and shares rather than cut services. This is right out of the Labour playbook, isn't it?
Completely. I mean, is it 1975?
I know.
Or, 2025?
Do you know what this is? It's just the politics of envy, and I just think it's nasty. It's going after pensions again.
But this is also coming off the back of over the weekend, all of these rumblings about whether Reeves wants to go after, sort of ISAs, and the whole point about ISAs being that is for people who have made sensible decisions. They've picked one of the safest savings in investments,
and it's not
just like,
massive amounts of money.
No, I mean, let's be really clear. Like £20,000 is what you're allowed to invest in an ISA in any given tax year. Yes, £20,000 is a nice amount of money, but the idea that if you have £20,000 makes you some kind of multi-millionaire is for the birds, right? That's for people who have, worked hard and saved and are being responsible and sensible, and are now after the fact being told, no, we're coming for that. I hate to mention, because it's the Daily Telegraph, but I hate to mention, inheritance tax or something like that. It's these taxes which are the sort of the double whammy of you've worked hard, you've paid your tax. Once you then had your money, you legitimately went off thinking, I want to invest it here, or I want to save it here, or I want to buy bricks and mortar. And then later down the line told, no, we'll still have some of that, thank you. That is the unfairness in this. None of this kind of barely disguised, as I say, 1970s
I think any
class
retrospective
war.
Taxes should be against the law.
It's because it makes no intellectual sense. And this is entirely of a part and parcel of that, be it, as I say, the ISAs, be it this on the pensions allowance. I guarantee you, I would not be at all surprised if the inheritance tax stuff comes bubbling away again in some kind of form. Yes, any of these retroactive taxes, they're the things that are fundamentally unfair.
They completely are. And also I was reading earlier today that pensioners now are getting letters from HMRC because they've frozen the level at which you start paying tax, and they're now being told to pay income tax on their statement.
Again, it's madness. Income tax for pensioners.
I know.
This is completely
It's
bonkers.
completely wrong.
And also bear in mind, and yes, I will make it clear that she faced no criminal charges, but this Angela Rayner, a woman a year ago, had some very serious questions about whether she'd paid the correct amount of, capital gains tax and all the rest of it. So I mean, this woman is not sitting in an ivory.
No. Well, none of them are
here.
None of them are they? I mean, it's just it's I don't know. But look, we know we're broke, and we know that come October, there's going to be more tax to pay. We know that. Where they get it from, I don't know yet, but they're going to find it.
Well, I mean, talk about people being disillusioned with the government so early on. I mean, it's a year. It's literally a year, and everything. And I'm going to be nakedly political, but everything that the Conservatives said about a Labour government has come true.
Yeah.
The taxes can't be trusted with your money, the naked socialism, the paying off the unions, no economic financial competence, nigh on crashing the market. I mean, I don't think a lot of people, because Labour's refrain is still, we had the £22 billion package.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, I just don't think anybody's believing that anymore. And by the way, the things you've chosen to do practically on day one, for example, take away the winter fuel allowance for you guys decided to do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you're unpopular. That's why you got a hammering.
And that was, as we said before, a political decision.
There you
go. It's not a financial decision. Interesting as well, of course, the taxpayer is paying for her to have a photographer follow her around for her vanity project. Let's have a look at The Guardian now. A good bit of news here at the bottom. Large bonuses due to be paid to Thames Water executives from an emergency £3 billion loan. I mean, the gall of these people. The absolute gall
Thames
that they
Water
had.
have been digging up my road for 2 months, and it's due to go on for another 8 months, which means that at various points during the week I just have no water.
Oh, great. That's good.
So, I mean, I've, taken to...
But they were going to give themselves bonuses for having muffed up so monumentally that our bills have gone up.
So, did you hear, I think it was the chief executive of Thames, it was definitely somebody very senior from Thames, was in front of a parliamentary committee last week, and he was essentially justifying why he should
have a bonus,
be getting his own bonus, which is now what he's not going to get. But he was sort of saying it as, he was quite Orwellian, and he sort of said, well, it's because there have been so many senior people coming and going, so their board is not stable, so we definitely need to pay people like me. I mean, I'm slightly paraphrasing, but not a lot. So we need to pay people like me, the tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds that we stay to do a good job. And literally there was a pause, and somebody on the committee just went, when is starting that good job going to happen? And it was just absolutely... I actually don't think they said it for comic...
No.
I don't think they said it for comic time. I actually just think somebody on that committee was like, and when are you going to stop being so rubbish?
Because, I mean, even the gall of suggesting that it just staying there to do a good job, you have bankrupted it. You took out loans to give out of our money to give to shareholders. You borrowed money to give to shareholders. You have bankrupted it to the point that we nearly had to take it over. And you've had a loan now, and you want to give yourself a bonus from the loan.
Yes. And I think the animus towards water companies, and Thames is one of the most egregious offenders, as is Anglia Water. I think the animus is such because whilst, yes, everybody gets very frustrated with, say, the energy companies and the rising prices there, the thing about water is you quite literally can't do
without it. I mean, it should really be free, to be fair.
Well, so that's where you sort of look at these people going, well, hang on a second, my water bills have gone up again
hugely
last month. As I've just said, lots of people across London, as I'm sure actually elsewhere, like there is absolutely no guarantee that the moment you go and turn on your tap in the morning to fill the kettle for a cup of tea, that it's actually going to work. And then you just think, I literally don't have water, which I need to survive. And you're justifying to me why you should get like a £250,000 bonus. Like, just what world are you living in?
Yeah, and meanwhile they're dumping sewage in everything they can find, every puddle, every
now
river,
facing criminal.
Yeah,
they will face now potentially criminal charges.
But then who pays the fine? We do.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul to use
well, it's
that
robbing
phrase.
us.
Yes,
always, isn't it? When councils go bust or whatever, then they just put the fees up to us.
But this is where I think the criminal sanctions might bite, because it was April that
they need to go to prison for more than a year.
It could be up to it's up to 2 years if they sort of knowingly. If the board, if senior executives are found to sort of knowingly, although to me that seems like it might be a bit of a get out of jail free card, is knowingly covered up any of these kind of sewage overflows. But fair play to the Labour government. This is actually one thing that they did say they would do, and as I say, became law last month that criminal sanctions that are now there, and it will be very interesting to see how they are enforced.
I mean, we all know that for these water companies, the fines for dumping sewage were less than cleaning the sewage. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And Ofwat should be drowned as well.
Well, yes.
I mean, terrible.
I mean, of all the
organisation.
inefficient quangos, they
Yeah,
are
of the whole
certainly up
quango
there.
that is inefficient. I mean, goodness me. Quick break, and Amy and I will be right back.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk. It is Petrie here and with me, Amy Fischer. We're looking at the Daily Mail now, Amy. Boris is saying, Starmer's Britain is turning into a police state, which is a heck of a comment. But anyway, Britain is becoming a police state under Labour. He spoke as a sentencing row erupted after a mother locked up for a tweet after the Southport murders failed in a bid to reduce her lengthy jail term. There's been much said about this. Freedom of speech. She should be allowed to say, listen, I believe in the freedom of speech. I'm a journalist. I live by it. You are free to say what you want about whoever you want to. What you are not allowed to do is incite criminality and violence towards that person or those people, right? You cannot do that. It is against the law. What this Lucy Connolly did was not a hurty, wordy, tweety, which a lot of my colleagues keep saying, oh, it's just hurty words. It is not that.
Black and white.
It was absolutely and emphatically a call to arms. She said we should burn down these migrant hotels. That is inciting to violence and that is illegal. It's as simple as that.
So I think it's quite interesting that actually her tweet was not quoted on the front page, because when you read what she said,
then you go,
it's clear it was. I mean, it just was an incitement to violence. As you just said, it literally called on people to go and burn down.
Yeah. And at that time, you've got to remember, people were rightly really angry.
Yes.
And they might have. This is the whole point. Somebody might have read that and gone, let's do it.
And
she was an MP.
I can't remember a
Conservative
councillor as well. And I can't remember whether it was in the social unrest over the Stop World Murders.
I believe it was.
Where a migrant hotel was.
Oh yes,
there was
there was an attempt to burn
attempted
it.
arson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So look, as I say, I think it's quite interesting that what she said is not quoted on the front page, because when you just do read it, you know, there is no kind of, oh gosh, maybe she was treated harshly. I mean, it's very clear what she was saying. And also, like, this headline, did we not spend the kind of first 10 minutes of your programme talking about actually how we're quite worried that it's soft justice and people aren't being punished correctly and people aren't being sent to prison, they're being let out. So, you know, this headline sort of flies into the face of actually all of those issues that we were talking about, which I think broadly the Daily Mail would usually agree with. But just on this particular example, you know, they've taken what I think is Boris Johnson's fairly strange defence of what this woman has said, is because it's not about an issue of free speech. Her words were very clear. She wrote them. She is being punished for them. So yeah, I think kind of there's a certain amount of internal incoherence in the Daily Mail actually, because of all the other news that's going on, as I say, about sort of early release and tagging. It's quite clear that it's not a police state.
Yeah, quite.
Really,
and also, the same people who are saying, oh, well, she shouldn't have been imprisoned for hurty words, are now calling for Gary Lineker's head. The exact same people are saying, well, she shouldn't have done, also, you know, she's gone to prison for that, and that's wrong because it's freedom of speech. Gary Lineker, though, let's get him. I mean, it's just like,
I mean,
what
I think
he
Gary
did was
Lineker
awful.
should be got. Yes, I just
I agree. But then, in the same regard,
but
so should she.
They're sort of making it. They're not comparing like with like as.
But they're not also the hypocrisy of saying if look, freedom of speech.
We don't like
if
this
you
person
believe
over
that
here.
exactly. If you believe in true freedom of speech, both of them are in the right.
Yeah.
But that's not what freedom of speech is.
Well, they're either both in the right or they're both in the wrong.
They can't. One
can't be one or
right
t'other by the same argument.
And that's what's driving me up the wall at the moment. But
I
look,
agree with
and they're
you.
saying inciting racial hatred. She was inciting violence against a particular group of people. Whether you like those people or not, you cannot incite violence. It is against the law. It's like if somebody phones up my programme and says, oh, I smoke drugs, it's great, I have to, by law, say, well, no, it's not great. You can because you can't incite people to criminal behaviour. Right, so I have to step in and go, look, you're inciting people to criminality. Look, it's not good. It's against the law. Blah blah blah.
There's like a sort of technical point I'd just like to make as well, which is not inciting violence is a long-standing law as well. By the way,
this
is not a recent kind of wokery, hurty-wordy, police misagenda. This is a very long-standing.
I mean, otherwise people would be able to go on to Twitter and go, oh, I know, let's get our pitchforks out and go after gay people, or let's get our pitchforks out and go after women. You know, let's beat up women on a Saturday night.
I mean, I think
that's what this is. That's what she got sent to prison for.
If there's a sort of editorial sort of comment piece in the Mail on this, which we can't quite see because we've just got the front page here, I mean, that could be quite interesting reading on Wednesday, because I quite like to try and understand. I just quite like to read and try and understand
their justification is.
Exactly, how they're trying to weld together stuff that doesn't seem coherent actually particularly at all.
I agree. The Sun newspaper, ITV daytime cull. Now, I don't watch ITV daytime, I have to be perfectly honest with you. I think it would literally make my hair fall out if I was forced to. But anyway,
but they probably chat quite a lot about that on Loose
They
Women,
probably
don't they?
do. Actually,
isn't it like sort of menopause and that one of their like hot topics? No puns intended.
Yes, they probably do. But yeah, so basically, what's happening is Lorraine, which comes on after the breakfast show. Is that Good Morning Britain? I think it's called that. Yeah, Good Morning Britain. She's normally on for an hour, 52 weeks of the year. Now, what will happen? She'll do half an hour, half an hour being given to Good Morning Britain, I believe, and then she will just do half an hour, but she will be required to present that 5 times a week, because she only does 4 at the moment. Somebody else does it on the Friday. Well, she doesn't even do 4, to be honest. There's lots of it in the newspapers about she's never there. And she'll only do it for 30 weeks of the year instead of 52.
Right.
Right. And Loose Women, likewise, will be cut to 30 weeks of the year instead of 52, and ITV are saying that they're going to, they want to spend more money on dramas.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's what their audience, presumably they've done, whatever sort of analysis of what people are watching. As I say, I don't think I've ever sort of watched Rain or indeed Loose Women. I just always have the view of it of, some slightly angry middle-aged women, of which I am one, but all just,
you don't want to watch them.
But I don't really sort of watch. I don't really sort of want to watch them just kind of making each other angry as they talk about menopause, right? So, I mean, as I say,
or just shouting,
sort of shouting about something.
Yeah, it's not my kind of telly. Let's put it that way. It really isn't. But the other story on the Sun: barking mad. Now we give bed and board to an asylum-seeking dog. Taxpayers are to fork out thousands of pounds. I suspect it won't be thousands of pounds to put up a dog that crossed the channel in a packed dinghy. The German Shepherd made a perilous trip with its illegal immigrant owner. The fiasco is believed to be the first time a canine. I don't mind giving bed and board to a canine.
No, look, there's a couple of elements to this. Firstly, I mean, it had to be a German Shepherd.
It had to be a German Shepherd.
It had to be a German Shepherd. It couldn't have been a Labrador.
No.
I mean, I'm not quite sure how. I mean, there probably is some nub of truth in this, but let's be honest. This crossed the kind of news desk, and somebody went barking mad, and boom, the day's flash was decided at that point.
Unbelievable. And the Daily Star, let's have a look. Well, actually, just very quickly, the Metro sewage crime probes hit a record 81. That was what we were talking about. Let's hope they all get banged up. And the Daily Star, again, they think it's all over. Your telly. What? Oh, this is the Lorraine Loose Women, and This Morning cuts to fund the World Cup.
Oh, so they've introduced a sort of sexism angle almost to that, haven't they? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Daily Star's
getting rid of the women.
Yes, exactly.
Getting rid of the programmes that are awful for women. I don't know why they have programmes for women. I'm quite capable of watching a programme that isn't for
women.
It's like Women's Hour. I don't need Women's Hour.
I agree.
I'm capable of listening to news without it being, it's all about girls. Yeah,
it's like the way that men sort of think that when women get together, all they talk about is babies, bras and Tampax. I mean, the idea that we might actually have conversations
no idea
about
what we actually talk
about. There we go.
I think they'd be very surprised if they actually knew what was going on. Thank you. That was excellent. I really enjoyed that. So that's Amy Fischer, their former director of comms for the Conservative Party, and fellow artist. That's so cool. I need to see some of your work now. Right, coming up, it's Just You and Me, and we're talking about Britain's justice system. As we learn, there is going to be new sentencing guidelines, and it looks like those sentencing guidelines might actually include the very real possibility that criminals won't serve any jail time if their sentence is for under a year. So I want to know what you think about that. Does that mean that we're not looking after the victims well enough? Is this soft justice? Have you been on tag? Have you, in fact, worked for the probation service? Because I'd love to hear from you if you've worked for the probation service at any point to tell me whether this is going to work or not. Or have you served a sentence that was under a year in length? Was it good for you? Was it no good at all? Let me know. Give me a call.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It is Petrie here, and it's now the phone-in hour. So there's no guests, there's nothing else, it's just you and me. And what I want to talk about is, I started the programme with it actually at 10 o'clock. It's this sentencing review, which we'll report this week, is going to be far bolder than anyone is expected. Today, it's been reported that the Lord Chancellor, Shabina Mahmood, has secured £700 million worth of funding from the Treasury to buy 30,000 more electronic tags, which will be used to curfew people at home, track their alcohol and drug usage, and log where they have been. This will be a huge expansion of the tagging system, which currently oversees about 20,000 people. Given that the system is already struggling, it's hard not to be sceptical about this announcement. At present, around 11,000 tag wearers are people on bail or immigration offenders, while another 9,000 are wearing a tag as part of their sentence for a crime. This may be a home detention curfew, HDC, a sobriety tag to measure alcohol consumption, or a GPS tag for offenders who aren't allowed in certain places, often used for domestic abusers. And the aim of these systems is support probation in supervising people that so that they don't reoffend. The only problem is with this system, the more I learn about it, the less good it is. I mean, for a start, a domestic abuser using a GPS, there's nobody watching that GPS, by the way. So domestic abuser gets out of jail on tag, or he's never gone to jail and is on tag. Probably has been to jail if he's on tag, to be fair, if he's a domestic abuser. But he's then got a GPS tracker on his phone. That's what they're talking about. And he decides, my ex-wife or my ex-partner dobbed me into the cops, so I'm going to go and finish her off. So off he goes, goes around to, knocks on the door, gets in, finishes her off, kills her, and goes back to wherever it is he's living. Now, the police will know he's been there, providing he's got his phone on him. But they haven't stopped the crime from happening, right? So you've got some very dangerous people who will be tracked by GPS. Oh, you couldn't make this stuff up. And you'll be able to go, yeah, well, he was there. He was definitely there. It was definitely him. And so then eventually he goes to jail. But the damage is done, right? There's another victim. Or you get somebody who's, broken the law in front of the beak there, being told you've been a very naughty boy or naughty girl, usually boys, let's be honest. Not just don't go, that's because we know that there are more men in prison than there are women. So naughty boy, so what we're going to do is we're going to put you on tag, mate. Oh, what does that mean? Well, what it means is you have to be home between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Any other conditions? Just don't break the law. And make sure you're home between those hours, really. That's it. Off you go. I don't think it satisfies me that it will act as a deterrent. I mean, I suspect if there's any prisoners listening, because I know you do listen, because I get calls from you, give me a call. Because if I were to say to you, listen, would you rather be on tag or in prison, which one would you choose? I'm guaranteeing you would choose tag, because it's not much of a punishment, is it? So, of course you'd choose that. I want to hear from you if you've ever worked in the probation service or the prison system, or you've served a prison sentence, let's say of less than a year? Was it any good? Was it pointless? Because that's the other thing. I want this to work because I want anything that stops future victims from existing to work. But I just can't see it. I don't have faith in it. But this is coming. This is David Gauke, the former Conservative Justice Secretary, will publish a long-awaited sentencing review. He's also going to talk about a system where, for the first time, a judge will give a criminal a minimum and a maximum prison sentence. So if they obey all the rules and they don't take drugs in prison and they go to education classes and they do some, I don't know, potential job training, that they will serve the minimum sentence. If they don't do that, then they will serve the maximum sentence. I don't know what you think of that as well. I think there has to be an element of punishment. I'm not happy with it being so easy, I think. I mean, what's to stop you from breaking the law if you know the only punishment you're going to face is being at home between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m.? I mean, it would be rubbish for me because I have to work, but late at night. But I suspect I could get them to change the curfew for me. I don't know. Best not break the law. Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you on this. If you've got any experience of this as well, or just as a layperson like me, are you satisfied with this? Because these are not monitored. They're just looked at maybe a couple of days later and see that that person broke curfew. And then they'll go and be arrested, presumably, and then end up in jail. But what have they done during the time when they've broken curfew? I just doesn't feel... I sort of imagined that it would be real-time monitoring and that if you weren't at home, a probation officer would go and find you and bring you back. I don't know why I thought that. I just did. I just assumed that it would be a little bit more robust. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Carol has called from Manchester. Morning, Carol.
Oh, good evening. Oh, my God, honestly. Right, I'll write my little list here. Tag Y4U. Prisoners need to be... it needs to be harder on them. Sentences need to be a lot harder. I've just wrote this tonight, and it's bobbins. MP, why are you so with the law with a lady given 2.5 years? Why? Right. So I'll just break it down with it because I'm so annoyed. Our law, there's no law. Our law is absolutely broken. Just like a load of things, it's absolutely broken. There is people being killed tonight. Tonight. They're being killed. Our young people, there's a young lad that in Bury down the road had been murdered, right? And we hear it time after time after time. A tag. What's a tag going to do? And like you said, you portrayed it. What you said before you spoke to me, and I thank you for that, because us ordinary people, people that live here, like in Manchester, like across the country or whatever, we have to put up with this, excuse me language, crap. It's so annoying that there's people in London, I've got a brother that's on the outskirts of London. They are absolutely... We live in Manchester. They're petrified. They're absolutely... The things that I'm learning... London is supposed to be our centre of our world in Great Britain, and we're laughable. It's being laughable. What the heck's going on? And we've got our police, right, we could go both ways with the police, right, with it. Why are they not doing this? Why are they not doing... Maybe because they are so peeved with the system that's been going on, not just with Labour. I mean, Labour, forget them. absolutely, there is disgrace, right? But even with Conservative, with what's been going on, right, I do not understand why is our country the way that it is. I don't understand it. Why is it that we cannot lock people up who are bad and then they're talking about building, like prisons. And like you and the person that you spoke to before, God bless her, I'm sorry,
Amy.
I forgot her name.
Yeah.
I forgot her name. Like at the end of the day, that lady is portrayed everything. Why is the government not listening to people like her? Like literally to say what's going on in this country. That's great. But the thing is like prisons, we don't need to build loads and loads. We need to build people who have, and no, there's no excuse for what they do. Like people with drugs or abuse or stuff like that. I'm not talking about perverts. I'm not talking about, people that batter up. I'm talking about people that are in institutions that are traffic, kind of things like that. Build buildings for them and put them in. Don't put them in prisons, put them in them, and then put the real bad bees, right, in the prison. And don't give them, so many years. There was somebody who today who trafficked from Egypt about 25 years. And you think, oh, yeah, 25 years. A lifetime. Never let that bloke ever come out. And yet you've got a woman who's, I've got a name, 2.5 years
Lucy
or
Conley.
whatever.
Listen, I'm not going to get into that
She's
sentence.
about-
Listen, I would
what she
probably
said.
agree that sentence is too long. I agree the sentence is too long, but I also believe she should be in prison.
Oh, definitely.
Because what
There's
she did
no
was
doubt
not just
about it,
hurty
but
words.
What you look at, what people are speaking to me and everything, and you can't help it. You've got to be careful because what's being put on television, we all see it, right, with it. You've got a person who came over on a boat 9 months ago and want to murder the Jews or whatever. We all know it. We have to be careful when those things are on television. We have to be careful to make sure that I'll be honest with this lady, with what I've seen, like over the last few days, like what she bought. Exactly. No excuse, no what you call it with it. But it's causing hatred. It's absolutely causing hatred in this country. And
it's because people don't understand the law as it stands. And inciting to violence has always been a criminal offence, by the way. It's not new. It's not new.
Exactly, and it shouldn't be. But, like at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that the real criminals are in jail. Like you just spoken about, people that are raping or paedophiles or whatever, they're the really big people. The other people regarding, definitely go in prison, and bring them out and then put them into a building that I've just said, build. We don't have to, the prisons we need to build for the really bad people.
I completely agree, Carol. And I also think that, look, you've got a system at the moment which that guy who got 25 years for trafficking, I hope they managed to seize his money. That is one thing. The other thing is that he's from Egypt. So he should serve his first 5 years here so that we can ensure that he has done a bit of time here and then serve the rest of his prison sentence
and people
in Egypt.
The ordinary people, I'll be honest, there's a lot of people that won't agree with that, but I agree with you because we don't need to keep them here. Move them on and put them where, so we have room to deal with what we need to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they've done the crime, a lot of people say, well, no, if they've done the crime here and the justice has got to be served here. But I do think that £700 million that is now being spent on trackers, should be spent on reacquainting some of our foreign prisoners who have no right to be here, or because they've broken the law, their visa has now been rescinded, that they should be returned. And I do believe that, and I do believe that we need that space for British criminals.
Totally agree with you. Great debate. Thank you very much.
Oh, listen, you're welcome, Carol. Great for you to call. Thank you very much indeed. Right, I'm going to take a quick break, but in a moment. But I've got a lovely picture here from Latoya. Me and MJ are locked in. I can't show you the picture, but it's absolutely lovely picture of her cat under a sheet at bedtime. It's very sweet. Thank you, Latoya. Quick break. Back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good morning to you. We're talking about tagging. And this is a phone-in. This is a whole hour, by the way, of phone-in. So please do join in the conversation. If you've never called before, it's as simple as picking up the phone and dialing 0344 499 1000. And we just have a chat about this story, and that is the rollout of electronic tags for criminals. And the basic theory about this is that no one, or most people, majority of people, will not spend a day behind bars if they are sentenced to under a year. Also, we know that tags are used for people who have served 40% of their sentence and then they're put out on tag. Now, those people, if you're in for 4 years or 5 years and you're out and you're on tag, you've done something pretty bad, right? And potentially violent, potentially sexual, potentially very, very nasty. And I don't believe that this system is robust enough. Certainly we don't have enough probation officers. They're not paid enough. They're not treated well enough. Why would you do the job? You've got a system that tells us where you have been, not where you are. So that, yeah, okay, you'll get caught, presumably, but you've already done, there's already another victim. So that's no good, is it? This is all about saving money. although this new system will cost an extra 700 million in funding, just buying the tags in the first place, let alone running the system. And this will become standard practice. This will become standard practice. And I don't know how it's meant to protect the public, you see, because the tagging curfew, this prison at home theory, will literally just be from 7 o'clock in the evening until 7 o'clock in the morning, so that people can take their kids to school, they can go to work if they've got a job, they can go for lunch with their mates, whatever, rob a shop, do some shoplifting, do a light mugging, nick a phone, whatever, during the day. And as long as they're home at 7 o'clock in the evening, they've you know, and they don't get caught for the other crimes, then they're following the conditions of their at-home prison. It doesn't. They are best used immediately when someone commits a crime, so the first crime that they committed, before they've committed enough to go to prison. It keeps them on the straight and narrow before the need to go to prison, especially youth crime. Now that kind of makes sense to me. You get people when it's very low level, and you say, right, you're tagged now, behave yourself. And that, I think, could work. The trouble with tagging a sort of hardened lag is, I think they'll see this as the easy option, to be honest with you. Why wouldn't you see it as an easy option? Of course it is. You've got to be at home between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. I mean, you know, that doesn't seem to be that bad compared to being locked in a cell, right? But are we preventing people from becoming more criminal? You know, if you've got somebody who's committed a lower end crime and you put them in prison, they say it's the best place to learn how to be a full-on criminal. So I think we've got to look at the whole system, really, and decide what we want from our justice system. But listen, give me a call. What do you make of this idea? Well, it's not an idea, it's going to come into force, that we never run out of prison places. But prison places are there to be used, right? Right, there's no point in having empty prison places, is there? There's no point in that, I would have thought. So we'll never run out of prison places because all the prisoners are at home. Brilliant. I could have come up with that. I tell you what, empty the prisons, send all the prisoners home, ta-da! We've got loads of prison spaces suddenly left. This is just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just losing my mind. Kevin in Hull, good morning.
Good morning, Petra. Thank you for letting me come in on your programme.
Oh, you're welcome. What do you make of this, Kevin? I mean, look, it's an easy one, isn't it? Don't send people to jail. You've got prison cells.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry. I just created a 14-hour shift, and I thought the basic conversation was about tagging.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But it is so multi-complex throughout the board. So the government is saying they're going to spend, is it 17 million?
700 million.
700 million. Right, okay. I think personally, if you look at the logistics, that's a drop in the ocean. All right, the tanks, but who's monitoring? Is it going to be the police?
No.
Is it going to be a private company?
Private company, Serco, I think.
Okay, so people broke the law. Have the police got the amenities to pick them up?
Well, I mean, look, this is all so weird to me because I thought that it was real-time monitoring. I genuinely did.
I thought it was.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
Somebody would have to go in a room and look at umpteen screens of GPS or whatever it is.
Or there would be an alert, a real-time alert. So you'd have a bank of screens, people sitting there, and there would be an alert to say that this tag number 12748 has gone into an area that they're not allowed into. That's what I thought would happen. I didn't think that it would just be looking at everybody person to person.
Yeah.
But I assumed that when it was broken, it was real time that the police would be told about that and they could then do something.
Yeah,
But it isn't.
So would the police have the resources? Would the private company have the authority to go and pick them up or whatever?
And my understanding is that the private company alert the police to the fact that somebody's broken curfew a couple of days later.
I think the thing is, as soon as you mention private company, I'm thinking profits.
Yeah, well, I'm just profits. That's what they're in it for. Serco makes an absolute fortune from the government, and we know that they've had problems with the tagging system. We know that because that's been widely reported. But still, we're giving them more money.
Yeah, I think the thing is, you touched on a thing I don't want to go into, but you said illegal immigrants.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that any foreign criminal, even if they're here on a visa and the fact that they've been sentenced to more than a year means that their visa conditions have been broken, that they should, I think they should be returned. Why not?
Yeah.
They've broken the visa conditions, right?
But I think the thing is, at the end of the day, going back in the day, tags can be altered. They go on a GPS, there's a signal. Back in the army days, in the Troubles in Ireland, if you're going around buildings, you have a signal jammer. So
I mean, look, I'm not technical at all, but I can imagine that these days people are more technical than the tags, right? So they can probably find a way around it.
I think you're right. If the crime is getting the income, then they will find a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I have this thought, and you said illegal immigrants, of course, but the people coming over the boats, imagine if you had to tag them, the system would never come.
Well, there was some mention of that a few days ago, that an immediate tag and release of asylum seekers and those coming over on the boats. But like you said, we just don't have the infrastructure for that. I mean, that would be another, 30 or 40,000 a year to add on top of the 30,000 we've got already.
Yeah, but don't you think then the public will actually get the idea of the amount of the problem? It's a bit mind-bending, but if you talk of figures, you know, I'm sure some people that come in are okay, but as you say, they're not screened, or it takes a long time to be screened, and the tags up and on the way.
Well, what tagging would do, presumably, is prevent them from disappearing off into the black market for work, or into just running away from any appointments that they might have for assessment. I mean, that's what tagging would achieve, I guess, but we just don't have the infrastructure for it.
Absolutely. As I say, it sounds like a good plan, and there'd be a lot of £1 million spent, but I don't think you will reap any percentage of the rewards that they think.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think this protects the public.
No, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't.
I mean, if you were going to break the law, Kevin, and you were told, look, either you go to prison or you can have a tag, you choose a tag every day, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, I get it. I'll come on the show and give you a big kiss.
Well, I tell you what, I think they'd see you coming with the tag. Well, 2 days later, maybe.
Well, I've had them on two wrists and two ankles.
Oh, Kevin, bless you. Thank you for calling in. Kevin there in Hull after a 14-hour shift. He works in a care home. He must be absolutely exhausted. So what do you think about this? Is it enough? Is this us going soft again on justice, going soft on crime? I mean, Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, has also said 700 million could have been spent expediting the removals of foreign criminals clogging up our jails, or maximising court capacity to reduce the 17,000 people in prison who haven't even been tried yet. And that is another thing, is all of these people in prison not yet found guilty of any crime, 17,000 of them. Get them through the courts quickly and free up those prison spaces, because they're not all going to be guilty. There's so much wrong that they're just not putting right, and instead going, oh, we've got this new toy, we can play with this. What do you think? Give me a call. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, it's Petrie here with you, and we're talking about tagging criminals, right? This is the new sentencing guidelines from Peter Gork, it's going to be coming out this week, and they're now suggesting, well, more than suggesting, the new plan is that anybody who's sentenced or whose incarceration sentence would have been less than a year, it will now be recommended that the general principle now is that they will not go to prison. They will not go to prison. They will instead be tagged. And the rules of the tag, it's usually, it's called home detention curfew, HDC tag. And it will be, as it sounds, home detention curfew, except that the curfew will generally be between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Otherwise, you're free to go about your life. You're free to go to work. You're free to, I don't know, look after the kids, take the kids to school, whatever it is that you do. And in some cases, look, that has got to be fantastic. If somebody has erred into criminality accidentally, or this is a first-time offence, so they were just trying their hand at a bit of, I don't know, whatever, then taking their whole lives from them is probably going, by putting them in jail, is probably going to lead to a lifetime of issues, like they lose their job, they come out, they won't get a job again, whatever it might be. And their wife might leave them, the kids might hate them, whatever it is. So maybe in some cases I can completely understand that it is not a good thing to incarcerate somebody in those very specific cases, and that, you know, they should be allowed to keep their job, because what we don't want is people to lose everything and then have nothing to live for, and then think, well, I might as well be a criminal now. I might as well, that's it now. I might as well learn what I can while I'm in prison. And, you know, it might as well, right? So I can see it in those cases, but I don't see it as a blanket decision. I don't see how that works, because there will be some people who have committed multiple crimes and haven't served any time, and then they get to the point where, well, maybe it will be, you know, time to put them inside. They go, oh, it's less than a year, so we'll just put them on tag. That's where I don't think it will work. Angie has sent me a message saying, a few years ago, I'm sure there was a Panorama or Dispatches programme about how tagging was easily bypassed or not enough staff to monitor it, etc. I believe Serco at the time had the contract. I pray to God things have changed. If not, we're up the creek without a paddle. Yeah, my understanding is Serco still got the contract. I don't know if they're looking to add to that or add another company to that. That's not been made clear yet. But I can't see that they would, a tag would be beyond the wit of some very clever people to get around. I really can't. In fact, I was talking to my son before I came on air tonight, and he said, oh, you know, Mum, a bit of heat on the tags and they can be stretched. And I said, I didn't know that, because I wouldn't know. So hopefully they fixed that now. He said that was certainly the case a few years ago. So hopefully that's been fixed now, where you can't just warm it up and stretch it enough to get it off your wrist or your ankle and then put it back a bit later on. Maxine has said, if I wanted to, I could track my partner using my mobile phone in real time and can tell exactly where he is via an app. Why on earth can't they track the tags in real time and arrest them at the time of breaching conditions or committing a crime? It really doesn't make any sense, and I'm with you on this. I feel like I'm going mad too. I've also heard people that were wearing tags talking about it like it was a badge of honour and boasting about it. Where exactly is the deterrent in that? The world has gone insane. Thank you, Maxine, because I really do sometimes think I've gone mad when you look at it, when they go, oh, if we just don't put people in prison, we're going to have lots of jail cells available. It's like, obviously. I mean, come on. Are you 3 years old? Does your partner know you're tracking them, by the way? Do they know? But yeah, I honestly, obviously I wasn't the only one. I thought I'd be made to look a fool. I genuinely thought that these people were monitored in real time. Otherwise, what is the blooming point? What is the point if they're not monitored in real time? It doesn't make any sense at all. Thank you, Maxine. Let's go to the phones now. And Paul has called from Hexham. Hello, Paul. I'm desperate to talk to you. Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Right, so tell me your story.
I got into a little bit of trouble about 25 years ago, and I was given the option from the judge to wear a tag or go to jail for 5 months. So I opted for wearing a tag.
Yeah, of course.
And I had to... the only way you'd agree to it was if I stayed at my parents' house, which I did. And the person, it wasn't Serco at the time, it was a different company, I think began with a C, etc., or something like that. The guy who fitted it, because my offence wasn't anything, it wasn't violent, right. It wasn't against another person, it was just me being silly financially. Oh. So anyway, And
Oh, we've got a problem with your line, Paul. Can we call you back? There's something wrong with the line. Let me call you back. This one. Hi, Petrie. You're quite right to be concerned about the extension of electronic tagging to convicted offenders. It will simply allow more potentially dangerous criminals onto our streets. Moreover, with the rapid increase in modern technology, it'll only be a matter of time before criminals find a way to disable or block those devices. And that's from Hans. That's the problem. They're just electronic devices, right? I mean, you've got people doing all sorts of stuff with electronic. I couldn't, but you know, I haven't got a clue. But Andrew says, great show, Petrie. Tagging is a joke. Totally agree with you when you say there's so much more needs to be done. I never understood why we give sex offenders, drug dealers and others, serious criminals, a passport. They should lose it for life. I agree. Again, why not? These people need to be... There has to be an element of punishment. Look, I'm not Victorian. You know, I do believe in that people can rehabilitate, but society demands a certain amount of punishment as well as the chance that this person could be rehabilitated. If it's all just, you know, staying at home between 7 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning, I don't see that as much of a punishment. But we've got Paul back now. Maybe you can tell me that it is. Paul, sorry about that. You turned into a Dalek. So you...
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
It's where I am in Northumberland.
Oh, right. So carry on. So you were put on a tag. You had to stay at your parents' house.
Yeah, which was a good thing in itself. But they weren't always there. And the thing is that the chap who put the tag on told me how I could diddle it. He said, you got a little dog there. He said, you can cut it out. He told me at a certain point that wouldn't break the signal. And he said, put it on your dog's collar, and they'll think you're at home, just pottering around. And if the dog goes out in the garden, you'll get an alert because they used to have these little boxes which would beep.
Right.
If you ventured out. And so the whole thing was just
a joke.
It was ridiculous. But I adhered to it. You know, I didn't take it. I didn't do that. You know, I just stayed with it, and then I appealed against it, and said to the probation officer, I says, look, I've got a job in Eastbourne. Can this tag be taken off? Because I really want to take this job. And they checked it out. It was all legitimate. I wasn't trying to get out of it. And sure enough, they did. So, you know, that was when the probation service worked properly.
Yeah. But did you feel, Paul, that you had been punished for your crime?
Oh, without a doubt, yes. Because this 7 o'clock to 7 o'clock, that wasn't it then. It was for me. It was 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was late once because I went shopping and I didn't get back in till 4:30, and the police were there waiting for me to get back. So
really?
they really could have put me into custody if they wanted to, but I had a legitimate reason, you know. So
you were allowed out. You were allowed out of the house between 8 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but the rest of the time you had to be indoors.
That's right.
Yeah.
I couldn't even sit outside in the sun. I had to be in, and this was in summertime as well. You know, I just couldn't. I couldn't be having a jolly in the pub or anything like that.
So you're saying that was about 20-odd years ago?
That was round about the millennium, just after the millennium.
Okay, right, so 25 years ago.
But it wasn't for a long time. It was only for, you know, they put 5 months on me. But it served its purpose. I'll tell you what, it taught me a lesson. Because at the time I was only a young lad, you know, and being told you can't go out at night and all all your friends are out. Oh, I tell you, it was pretty tough. But my parents were pretty tough on me as well, so I'm rather lucky in that respect.
Yeah, having to go home or having to go back and live with your folks, that would be punishment enough for me. I can tell you that. But yeah, but do you think this system can work then? I mean, I suppose it depends on the person. If you're a hardened criminal, it's not going to work, is it?
I think if they've got the staff to sort of impose these conditions and respond to anybody who breaches it, then certainly, no doubt about it. Or people who respect the fact that they've been given a chance to, not sit in jail.
Yeah.
And have an element of freedom, but not altogether freedom, then maybe they'll learn and think, oh, I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, I don't actually want to go to prison. Well, what is interesting though is you say that you broke curfew and the police were there waiting for you. That wouldn't happen now.
Probably not, but I suppose we're lucky where the area where I live is our police are quite responsive. They're not quite overrun with crime. But, I mean, there are things that go on, obviously. But if you're in a city or a large town...
Yeah, there's more chance of getting away with it, isn't there?
They don't really have the resources.
Yeah.
That's
really interesting. And it's interesting, it's good to know that it did work. And I think that's what I was saying just before I spoke to you, is in certain cases, it would be much better to do that with people like yourself, who are not hardened criminals, so that you don't become hardened criminals, so you don't lose your job and you don't lose your, your place in society. And I can see that the tag would be absolutely the perfect thing to do for somebody like that. But I just don't think it will work with people who are used to being in and out of jail. I just don't think they'll care. I think they'll think, well, that's easy. And like some people are saying, more than one person has already said to me that they're wearing it as a badge of honour. It's like, oh yeah, I've got a tag, look at me, I'm cool. Pathetic. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. A couple of messages I want to read out. It's from Latoya saying, love you, Petrie. Can we see puppy pics sometime? Yeah, I'm obsessed. I'm totally obsessed. You only have to ask me once. I'll make sure I sort some out for you. And Peter says, your current caller is on the money. Racial hatred, that was Carol. Racial hatred is being caused by the government courts. You're right about Lucy Powell. That's the woman that got sent to prison for tweeting, calling to action, really, for people to set fire to immigrant hotels. She did incite violence, and then you go on to mention another name, a Labour councillor, Keir Starmer, needs reminding of this. The only reason I'm not going to read that name out is because there's an ongoing court case. So I'm not going to read that out, but I do take your point. But there is an ongoing case at the moment, innocent until proven guilty and all that. So, Peter, thank you for that, but I take your point. Gary, I don't think electronic tags are effective. In general, we are too soft on crime and should be tougher. We need more prisons, but then there's paying and staffing them. That's the thing. They are very expensive. He goes on to say, I think you should be tagged, though, so that you're in work 5 nights a week, because the rest of the week is boring when you're not in. Great show. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Please don't wish that on me. I like having my days off so I can paint and look after the puppy. And the other dog too. Anyway, look, earlier on I was talking about this introduction of tags. Is we're going to suddenly go from like 9,000 to 30,000 people. That's what they want to do, breakneck speed, really, really quickly. We don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the staff, we don't have the technology to do that. However, it's a big leap very, very quickly for these extra 30,000 electronic tags. So I asked David Shipley, right, who is a former prisoner and now advocates for prisoners, can we actually even do this?
Yeah, it's a huge leap. And the problem the government's got is the prison system is broken and full. So this week we're going to see the sentencing review announcing all sorts of changes, which will mean fewer people going to prison, trying to bring the prison population down. In an ideal world, we'd have a few years to get the probation service ready to have this many people on tags, to get the computer system set up, to get people trained. Instead, the government's going to be trying to do this at breakneck speed to stop the prison system running out of space in 2026. So I think it's really risky.
I mean, yeah, I mean, to upscale that quickly and that significantly, I mean, already Serco are failing to tag people who are supposed to be on tag the second that they're released from prison, having served their 40%. They're not getting to them for a few weeks. I mean, anything can happen in that time, right?
Yeah, and this is the huge problem. You can have all the technology in the world. If your people are not in work, if they're not very well trained, if they're not very diligent, the system won't function. All this monitoring technology, it's not like Mission Impossible. There isn't a control center where they can see where every person with the tag is at any moment and what they're doing. These systems set off alerts if someone breached the rules of their tag, and that gets reported to Serco, who are then supposed to report to probation. Often that doesn't happen quickly. So actually, you know, that's the issue here. And if you don't have enough good people in probation and enough people working for Serco on these tags, the system will fall apart.
Do these tags deliver what we are told that they deliver? Even that description there, that if they, like for a domestic abuser, for example, would have, I presume, some sort of area that they're not allowed into where they've domestically abused their partner. Do they really alert somebody that quickly, that you could get the police there that quickly? You know, if somebody on tag who has domestically abused a partner wanders next to the house, are the police there within milliseconds, as you would hope?
No, not generally. So these tags log where someone's been, but I said there's not sort of live monitoring of people's locations. So generally speaking, all you'll be getting is a record that the person has breached their license, on which basis they could be recalled to jail. But these aren't a replacement for supervision, and they aren't a replacement for probation officers. I think that's a really important thing. They are a tool for those professionals.
I mean, the reason I mentioned domestic abusers is because when we had that early release scheme where the government said, no, we're not going to let anybody violent out. Of course, we know now that there were domestic abusers who were allowed out. Now, domestic abusers, if they've got a literal axe to grind, they could then go and, let's say, murder their ex-partner, and the police will only know that they were there. They won't know when they are there.
Yes, and I think you would hope that will deter some men. The knowledge that they would be caught hopefully would deter that kind of violence. But yeah, it's not a live system for preventing crime. Similarly, the alcohol tags and the drug tags they want to bring in don't stop someone taking drugs or drinking. They'll just recall that they've done it so they can face consequences for it down the line.
And are you satisfied as a former prisoner that this is robust enough, that this system is robust enough?
Well, it's a good question. I've worn a tag, and it does feel restricting. You know, you have to be home by 7 p.m. every night. You can't leave the house till 7 a.m. in the morning. That meant, I couldn't go out or anything like that. I could work in the daytime, but that was it. So it does feel restricting. And what the government's talking about doing is switching to a model where people, if they behave well in the prison system, get released early, onto tag for longer. And I can see the appeal of that. And I think if it was done well and conditions of release were that you had to be working, it could be quite effective. There's a couple of problems. As I said, first of all, there's not many probation officers and we need thousands more. And we've got these issues of Serco. But also, a lot of the people who are, particularly those on short sentences, who'll be benefiting from this, often have quite chaotic lives. They have substance abuse issues, they have mental health issues, and they need a lot of supervision. And for them, abiding by a tag might actually be this incredibly difficult thing to do because they've got to manage all these drug addiction issues. They've got lots of people who have bad influences in their life. They need close support from probation and other professionals, and it's not clear how that's going to be delivered with the staffing levels we've got.
The tag itself, are they easy to remove? Can they be removed without detection? Is there a way of doing it?
Not generally speaking, no. If you cut them off, it will set off an alarm. I think in the early days there were some cases where the tagging companies would fit tags to false legs and this sort of thing, and people would remove the tags, which is quite funny, but obviously a worry. Generally speaking, they will set off an alert if the tag is removed. But again, there have been issues where Serco haven't relayed that as quickly as they should have to probation. I think part of the problem here, the risk of sounding, like a rage